Morning. Hello. How is everybody? So I was a little bit concerned because there are one or two swear words in my presentation, but being as somebody as sweet and innocent as Goshi has already swore, then I don't feel too bad about it. So welcome to the session. It's true, I've kind of disrupted the agenda, so whoever swapped with me, thank you very much. Sorry about that. I'm an only child. This happens a lot. Things have to revolve around me. So welcome to the session. I think it's going to be a little bit different to some of the sessions that we've seen so far, and hopefully quite thought-provoking for everybody here, which is my reserved English way of saying I'm going to be belligerent and argumentative. So a little bit about me, first of all. I won't spend ages on this, but so my background, I spent years and years working for a business-to-business distributor in a number of commercial roles, so product management, and supply chain, and then latterly I was the global head of content there. So we built the content team from scratch, transformed the business from very print-focused into being online, managed a team of about 120 content people for a product range of about 500,000 products, 1.5 million customers, about £1.2 billion worth of sales, of which something like 70% was already online. So we were creating catalogs, and 70% of our sales were coming through the website. So we built the team from scratch, moved from print to digital, and all of the things that were associated with that. But actually, part of the challenge was, I've always been quite opinionated about what I think should happen in content, which you're about to see. So it's very noisy out there. I'm going to come over here, sorry. Shh. So it's very distracting. This is coming out over there, and that's going on in there. So I tended to be quite opinionated about how I thought things should run, as you're going to see. So there kind of came a time where I had to kind of put up or shut up. So I decided to set up Simply Consulting Simply. And it's a very small consulting firm. It's me. And basically, because of that, we don't have a marketing department, and I'm not a marketeer by any stretch, as you'll see from the slides in a minute. So the best way that I can describe what it is that we do is we help organizations with two really important phases in their content strategy and their digital transformation. And those two phases are the give a shit phase and the oh shit phase. So to begin with, the give a shit phase is about getting content on the corporate agenda and getting an organization to pay attention to the fact that, guess what, whether you like it or not, your business is moving online, so therefore content's going to be really important. And then what typically happens is it goes on the agenda. The people that have ordained that it's now on the agenda decide that, well, that's simple. Now I want everything yesterday and super and fabulous. And the poor person that's responsible for the content strategy is now the only person in the business who realizes quite how big and complex and difficult all of that is. So they have their own oh shit moment, whacking great oh shit moment. So all we do is try and break that down, take that long-term vision, put it into short-term value cycles, and really probably the best way to describe it is move them from a feeling of nervousness that it's not going to be successful into a confidence and a sentiment that they stand every chance of being successful. So that's what we do. So the talk today, our content sucks, right? Of course it doesn't, okay? Actually, the reason I want to talk about this is because there is a problem that I see in lots of organizations that affects us and the way that we go about our business. And I think confidence and pride and ability and other people acknowledging how good we are at the things that we do is really important to the journey for content. So there'll be lots of people here who are pretty far forward in their thinking in terms of content, but there are lots of people in terms of digital transformation and content who are just starting. There are organizations, believe it or not, who sell products online who only have 5%, lots of them, 5% of their sales coming through the online channel. So there's a journey for lots of people who perhaps aren't attending content events like this for them to go on, and it will be us that make it successful. So I wanted to talk about this today because I think it's important, and I think we need to own the narrative. That's the important thing. We're going to talk lots about how we go about talking about content and our own philosophy. So let's talk about the problem for a bit. Hopefully, this is familiar to me. I'm hoping. Otherwise, this will be the shortest talk of the day. I'm hoping this is a problem that you guys recognize. So I see a number of things going on. The first one is when it comes to content, opinions are like arseholes. Everybody I speak to has one of each. An opinion on what I should be doing with content and the other thing. But also, kind of, we're Sometimes we behave a little bit like this, and sometimes we're forced to behave like this. There are other professions in the organization that come with this preordained, naturally accepted professional excellence. So product management, marketing, that nebulous, non-descriptive world, even that comes with a professional kind of expectation. Purchasing, sales, all of these people are already bona fide experts in their field. And content just doesn't come with that natural expertise, that prestige perhaps that it does at the moment. And most importantly, oh, that's a shame it doesn't work. If the laser was pointing, it'd be pointing at the bottom one. And then all everybody wants to talk about is the stuff that you haven't done yet, or the stuff that's still rubbish, or the stuff that didn't work, and all of the focus is on not what's being done, but what still needs to be done. So I'm seeing at least one person in here is nodding. So for the rest of you, you can kind of do your emails. There's at least one person that recognizes the problem that I'm going to talk about. So, and this is frustrating, drives me nuts, really, really winds me up. However, controversial point number one. So I'm not quite James Comey calling Donald Trump a liar, but what if it's us? What if we're allowing this narrative? Remember I talked about the narrative. What if we're allowing this to take place? So we do things like we talk about how much content has been done, how recently it's been refreshed, and we expect people other than us to kind of care about this. We talk lots and lots about all of these phrases, DITA, SEO, black box exercise. We talk about ontologies and taxonomies and all of these kind of things. This is our technical expertise, right? So I'm not disparaging this in any way. I just think for lots of people it's the wrong conversation. This is difficult to understand even when you live in our world. So my question is kind of, if you're not in our world and you want people to take us seriously, the bloody hell are we talking about? Why is this the kind of foremost of the things that we discuss with people? And we kind of treat it almost like, I know when I was trying to learn and understand content, quite often we come to events like this, and if you don't know and understand it, it feels like you're staring in at a club through the window that you're not allowed to be part of. And my challenge is we're kind of creating this environment ourselves, or I think we are, just my humble opinion. But the good news is, it's going to be all right, I promise, okay? All we're doing, I think, is framing the discussion in the wrong way and talking about the wrong things by talking about our technical expertise and the complexities of it. So the way I like to describe this is all of those people who have an opinion, all of those people that don't understand it, all of the people that are telling you what you should be doing with your content, they're nothing more than amateur speculators. So here's the thing for you to kind of dwell on. After I've just said we're the problem, it's true, it's difficult. So at no stage through this, while I make everything sound simple and oversimplify everything, because that's what I do, I'm not pretending the task that we face and the task that organizations face is simple. And here's a challenge for you when you're taking on board what these people are saying. Actually, if it was easy, it'd already be done. And if these amateur speculators knew more than you, it'd be them doing it. So have a bit of faith in our ability. But we're depending on each other, all of us, for this dynamic and this problem to go away and for us to change it, okay? So we kind of, if we talk about it in a particular way, we're going to get back what we deserve. So if you do the same thing over and over again, then it's madness to expect it to change. So, but our people, the people in our teams who are feeling this problem and this pressure and have this constant narrative of things aren't complete and we don't understand why it's important and money gets invested elsewhere. If we don't take care of this, if we don't zip up our grown-up suits, they're going to carry on feeling this. So I guess my challenge is that we have to take some responsibility. So, in framing that discussion differently, let's start at the most obvious place. Okay? Now, it's great. This has been, for me, I found this quite a technical conference, but there's been two things that have been really, really interesting for me that perhaps wouldn't have happened a year ago at this or any other conference. I've heard lots and lots of people talking about the customer, hurrah, and lots of people talking about measuring the customer and truly understanding what it is that they do. And this is where we need to start. So, actually, you already know in your field, in your organization, what it is your customers need. If you don't, you need to up your game. It's that simple. But actually, I think if I was to ask you guys what it is your customers need, you would already know. And it's not difficult for us to find out. So I come from a B2B background. it's very easy for me to understand the marketplace, and I can describe it to you really simply. So at the phase where people are considering and looking for a product to buy, what they value most of all, really distracting, what they value most of all is a broad set of products. They want lots and lots of products because they don't want to have to look around in loads of different places. And then when they come to choosing what it is they want to buy, when they're actually going to make a purchase, what they value most of all is credibility and knowledge about the product. They want to deal with somebody who answers their questions about the product. So it's simple. That didn't take me long to find out. I'm not some kind of researcher. So that means we need reuse of content and lots of products, and we need to be smart about how we create it, and we need to write content and create content that answers their questions. So you have to do that. You have to start from a point of, this is the get out of jail free card. This wins every argument when you know what it is that the customer needs. And you have to have the confidence to kind of hear it properly as well. So you have to be prepared to hear it firsthand. So craziest of all ideas, we used to ask customers what they thought of our content. We used to give them the chance to give us feedback. And as somebody said yesterday, generally they only bothered to do that when they'd got an amendment to make or something that they wanted to improve. So, but on top of that, what we used to do after it was fixed, I'm not stupid, we'd phone the customer back and just say, look, my name's Alan, manage the content here. You gave us some feedback. Thank you for that. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about our content today? And just hear it firsthand, because when you know that, it makes you credible. It means when you get into a discussion about reframing the discussion, when you get into a discussion about reframing the narrative, it means you're credible because you're listening and you're hearing from people firsthand. And it takes some courage, but you have to do it. And then there's a real kind of inflection point. There's a really important point about this. When you get that knowledge and you have it, you can't keep it to yourself. So what you can't do is get involved in this kind of intellectual pissing contest where it's there hidden away to bring out and win a project or to bring it out and win an argument. What you have to do is define that customer need simply, and you need to share it widely. And in particular for your team. So your team need to know what it is that the customers are demanding for two reasons, really, because you're going to want them to go off and meet that need, but you also have to set the example and inspire them. So we start with the customer. Who'd have thought it? And then the question for you is, once you know and understand what it is the customer needs and other people are doing other things, what are you going to do? You're going to sit there and be indignant and upset about the fact that other people are wrong, or are you going to be inspirational and challenge your team to meet those customer needs? Because these are all choices. Okay? What I'm doing today is pushing you guys around and everybody else who will ever listen to me about changing this and doing something differently. So if for us we're looking at the end-to-end experience from a customer, that includes their content, it includes user experience. For us, it would include whether the product was available, whether it was in stock, and the pricing. If it's not content that's stopping customers from buying it, we have to say so. We have to sit there meekly and take our lumps and go and scurry off and do more content or better content. You need to know what it is that's stopping the customer from purchasing the goods. And you need to fix it. And when you know what it is that the customer needs, stop seeking permission to go and make that change and drive content forward to deliver it. Stop kind of edging in apologetically in amongst all of the other activities. Charge out and set the example and do what it is that you need to do. Okay? Leadership requires you to be a leader in these things. So a great example for us was, and might be similar for other people, search versus browse. So the vernacular, the perspective from other people around my organization was, leave browse alone, no one bothers. 70% of all of our activity online is customers going through search. So stop creating content for that, because I'd like you to create content for this area of the website. Thanks for your opinion. But actually, what they're not understanding, which we did, is that browse journey is important for search because it comes back when customers who are increasingly doing this are using open-ended search terms, asking questions of your website, because Google lets them do that, so when they come to you, they're going to do the same. When you get a broad set of results returned, you're going to bang them into the browse journey. And at that point, they're not sure where they're going. So actually, increase content that answers their question, even if that question is just, where do I go next, is important. So thanks for your opinion, but actually, we're going to create content in this space because we believe it's important. And that's just us deciding that we're going to see things through that we believe in. So my next question to you is, so who is it that's saying to the organization that our content's crappy and changing it's difficult? Because often without realizing it, it's us, or we're at least endorsing it, or allowing that kind of myth to perpetuate. If we carry on saying it, excuse me, then why are other people going to believe that anything's different? Why are they going to take on the challenge? So I would never propose that you have a ton of ongoing process development changes or any of those kind of things, because it's disruptive and it gets in the way of doing what you're supposed to be doing. But moreover, a philosophy of asking, well, what if we do things differently? Actually, why not? Why can't we make a change? And really what I'm saying is, if the thing that you've always done that holds you back from improving your content is batshit crazy, or it looks batshit crazy, stop doing it. And more importantly, encourage your people to have that approach. So if the challenge that, so you understand the customer need, you know what challenge is out there in front of you, and you do also know that it's difficult to make these changes, unleash the power of your team. So stop giving your team tasks, stop prescribing what it is that they need to do, get them to focus on the outcome from the customer, set them the why, and just leave them to do the what and the how. And give them the opportunity and set the example whereby if something holds them back or something that we've done forever just seems crazy, give them the opportunity to stop doing it. Just allow them. This is incredibly rewarding. So we achieved some great things when I led the content team, but the one that I'm most proudest of, when we put the team together as a group of people, we did an employee engagement survey. 42% of the team were engaged. 42%. So over half of my team were, what's the word? Pissed off. Once we'd built the team and set off on the challenges and kind of been through this case study that I described, 79% of the team were engaged. And when we asked them what it was that had made the change, it was the fact that they were empowered and they were free to challenge things that had been done before. And what's really important about this as well is you'll be respected for at least being willing to take the challenge on. How many times have you sat down with somebody and said, look, I need a bit of help, I want to make this change, we're going to do this. And then what follows is a conversation that took longer to tell you why you can't make the change than it would have done to have just given the sodding thing a go. Okay, that I think, not very scientific, is the equation for momentum. So I want to talk about momentum here a little bit. This is a virtuous circle. So what will happen is, if you approach things in this way, things will start to move forward a little bit. And it's important to focus on those small changes, because what you're starting to build is some customer delight, which in turn results in them buying your products or engaging with your products. Hurrah, that's what we're here for. Which in turn results in some professional pride for your people. And round it goes. So it's important not to set scale on these kind of things. Boil the ocean's a horrible, ridiculous phrase. But the point is, just get going. Have some success and share it with the people. Okay? Our job as leaders is kind of there's three or four things that are really, really important for us. First thing is we have to inspire our team to understand what it is that the customer needs. That's really important. I've talked about it already. You have to empower them. So forget about the tasks, empower them to go and achieve the outcome, and let them get it wrong. Okay, they'll learn from that, and I'll talk about how they learn from that in a bit. Probably the most important one, and the one that I talk about most, shooing away the magpies. So once you start and you start to get little incremental changes and benefit, what you need to do is be wary of some guy coming out of a big posh office in your organization and going, that's not very exciting, that's actually quite dull, let's do this. Rah, shiny, rah, shiny. You have to stop them from doing this, okay? I called, not connected to me leaving the organization, but I suggested our executive committee were magpies, and they all sat there looking around at each other going, yeah, you are. I was like, no, I mean all of you. So shoo the magpies away and show yourself, show everybody that will listen what you're getting from it. Because whilst the change might have been quite small initially, it has value, that circle. Customers are happier, they're buying more, people have professional pride. You just have to make it visible. Now, you'll notice that my appalling metaphors have now fallen apart completely, because that's not a snowball, that's a car soapbox thing. This is the bit where I'm going to be quite serious for a minute, kind of. in which I'm going to prepare myself for being serious for a moment. Here we go. So metrics on the agenda, lots of people talking about it. I'm going to come at this from a slightly different angle. But metrics are absolutely fundamental to this. But we have a problem. So that phrase, just enough science to survive. There's a difference between knowing enough to guide and drive your business and being an analytics professional. So there's lots of challenge in this in the sense that it is incredibly scientific when done well. There's always a question over whose roles and responsibilities are it, so you have to wait for somebody else to serve you up information about what's going on in your world, and lots of other challenges for it. So I ran that content team, £700 million worth on sales. We asked the customer whether or not they met their objective today, and if they didn't, we asked them the reason, and one of those reasons or a number of those reasons would be content. So nice and simple. Did you do what you wanted to do today? And if not, why not? I understood how many times somebody looked at the products I was responsible for, how much money they spent on them, and then a simple, I won't call it conversion because anybody that's in analytics will come and hound me for that not being accurate. But huge team with those simple measures, because all you want to do is understand whether or not things are working. So think of the metrics and the measures that you're using as being for you and the team. Remember, this is about changing their life and how things are for them. So you only need enough to be able to go back to them and say, this cool thing that you did hasn't worked. This cool thing that you did is fantastic. So we need to do more of this, smarter, faster, harder, all of that kind of stuff. And also you'll get the debate around, so whose responsibility was that great increase in sales or that huge number of new customers looking at the content that you've created? Who cares? A win's a win. More people are looking at it. Who cares? Let other people go and give themselves an ulcer arguing about whether it was UX or the SEO team or it was the content or it was sales because they told people the content was there. I don't care. If things are improving and I know I made a change or my team made a change and I can show it worked, that's it, I'm done. Kind of while they're off busy giving themselves an ulcer, I'll go and do more of that thing because I know it works. So you have to have confidence in the stuff that's coming out. And the worst thing that will happen, if you've empowered your team and let them get on with these kind of things, and you're measuring it, the worst that you will do, I promise you, the worst you will do is create great content that actually doesn't have an impact. Still bloody great content. You know, remember right at the beginning? Oh, your content's rubbish, you haven't changed this, there isn't enough of it. Well, there's some more content. There you go. Fill your boots. So, it's all good, it's building, things are getting better. My next challenge and my next question to everybody is, does it sound like it around the place? So we're back to the narrative again. So happy customers, more sales, people are starting to take note. Okay, people are starting to understand that the stuff that you're doing is having an impact, not on our content, on our business and our organization. So that's really important. I don't want this to sound like you don't need to know where you are in terms of progress and how things are going, okay? So you need a compass. You need to know where things are, how much is left, and all of those kind of things. But, you know, it's important to focus on progress at the same sort of ratio as I'm kind of describing there. So it is all about outcomes, but understand where you are in progress. But when you're talking about the things that you're describing, why are we explaining them to people? So here we are at a point where, what I mean by this kind of section of the talk is, we're doing great stuff, things are really cool, we're starting to build momentum, and then we slip back. So we slip back into talking about how difficult it is, all of the things we've done and the tasks, and we move away from the outcome. So we had a great example of this. Our product titles, widely accepted as not fit for purpose. We didn't translate them because there were abbreviations in them. Awful. Everybody hated them. So we decided to change them. And to change our product titles, because of the number of products and the number of languages that we translated or localized into, it meant the task was 5 million titles big. Now, I had a project manager at the time who would go and say, they're not fit for purpose, we have to put them in the right place in the product hierarchy, then we have to go and source the content, then we have to build them, then we have to take them out of this system and put them into that system. Then the teams look at them to make sure they localize all right, and yada, 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 yada. And at the end of it, oh, by the way, we've done loads of them. That message is really simple. They were terrible. Everybody agreed they were terrible. There's 5 million to do. We've updated 2.5 million of those. The number of localized ones gone from 25% to 60%. Oh, and by the way, we used them in search. And when we used them in search, 15% more people clicked through to the product. It's a positive story. It's the same story. We just described it completely differently. And linked to that, why are you explaining? I think the other thing I wanted to cover is it your job and do the people you're speaking to deserve you spending time trying to make them understand it? If the news is good and customers are happier, that's the extent of the conversation for me. So I worked for a guy once, and I went in talking about, it was earlier than this, but talking about the content strategy. So stood there, and I tried to describe to him, I'd been blown away. I was selling some of my children's toys. No, I was selling some of my clothes on eBay, and the product introduction process on my phone was better and simpler to use than our product introduction process for a distributor of 500,000 products. So I'm explaining this in the boardroom, and the CEO looked at me blankly and said, "Never used eBay in my life." He's also the same CEO that allowed 3 changes to the conversion metric in 3 years. And he's also the same CEO who, in a £700 million business, didn't get daily sales of his online business. Doesn't deserve me to educate him. Let's go back to the message. Descriptions were crap. Now they're getting better. Customers are buying products as a result of it. Simple. In and out, back on with the job. So don't get drawn into explaining why things are good. Now then, having followed all of that advice, here's what happens next. And this is the good bit, okay? So the first thing that will happen is you will surprise yourself and you will surprise everybody else. So the good thing about that negative narrative is people have quite low expectations. So what you're achieving and the benefit you're adding all of a sudden gets people's attention, which is great. And, you know, kind of pride is an emotion, pride is a feeling. This is hard yards for the people that are creating content. So when those guys feel proud of what it is that they're doing and they feel like they're a commercial specialism, they're on a par with other parts of the business, they can point to the success they're driving for the organization. That's what kicks them on to go and do the next tough, difficult, long, drawn-out piece of content or activity. So round and round it goes. I used to have a phrase I used to say about my team that I would trust them with any challenge that we set them because they always kind of rose to the one previously. And that all came from that part there. And the bit I love about this is you're going to start, if you manage that narrative and you talk consistently and reliably about good stuff, you'll start to hear it play back. Now, at that point, isn't the point to stand there and go, "Yes, I told you so." Right? Let it go. Be proud inwards. But you'll start to hear around the organization people saying the things that you're saying. Content's improving. Content's getting great. Have you heard? Look at all the descriptions they've done. Look at all the titles that have been done. Look at all of these new products with fabulous content. You'll start to hear it back. So you haven't gone in there selling and pushing the message. What you've done is described it in a way that means it's come back to you. So, and it, you know, what happens here is everything kind of splits into 3 for me. So don't worry about who it is that you convince. So imagine the organization will split into 3 because it always does. So there'll be a third of the people in your organization who will understand this and think it's great. There'll be a third of them that don't understand it, but they'll know it's great because you've told them that's the case. And then there'll be a third of them who still don't care or who still think it's crappy. But it doesn't matter because they stand a 2 in 3 chance of being shouted down by somebody else. So instead of it being you and your team grumbling away at the water cooler or at the coffee machine going, "Oh, I just don't understand what we're doing," other people are doing this for you. So what do you get for all of that? This is really cool. So the first thing you get is everybody buggers off out of your backyard and lets you get on with the job that you knew you were supposed to be doing anyway. Because all of a sudden they understand. Things are good in the world of content. You're driving the business forward. People are acknowledging that you're driving business forward. So they'll go and mither somebody else. They'll go and bother because it's in their nature to do so. The team get recognition. Really cool. So people start to look at them as content professionals driving the business forward. And I've not talked up until now about systems investment or technology or extra resources or any of those kind of things. And that's quite deliberate So this is the holy grail for me. If you want a transformation project and you show value, what you're aiming for is to get to the point where somebody senior with deep pockets and the money to invest comes to you and says, that content's brilliant. How do we get more of it? So, funny you should ask. We could do this, and we could do this, and we could do this, and it's going to cost you this amount of money. So you haven't gone into a board with a plan and a strategy and kind of hand out, competing with everybody else to try and get money for investment in your content strategy or your content team. They've come to you and they've asked you the brilliant question, this stuff's great, Alan, how do we get more of it? It's just a completely different perspective when you want to invest in the team and moving things forward. So, I'm almost done. I don't know how somebody was going to wave 10 minutes at me and they're not in, so we might be doing lots of questions. So this is kind of the whole new world that you're heading to. This is the thing this is my ambition for content people the world over. Sounds a bit grandiose and tossy, but you know what I mean. So it's becoming in your organization a recognized commercial specialism. Just like the product managers that add the product, just like the pricing folks that drive sales or margin, content is becoming a recognized commercial specialism because it's driving the ambitions of the business. The business recognizes that the content that we create has more value to it. It's a strategic asset. So the thing that you put in front of customers to answer their questions or convince them to buy products or whatever it is that you do with your content has a value in the organization such that they would do things like investing in it. 10 minutes, brilliant. And also that the best of all, those opinions that you get, they kind of come and go. You're in a situation where that's great, yeah, thanks for your opinion. Do you know what? We know what we're about. Everybody thinks we're great. We're doing brilliant stuff. Customers are doing what we want them to based on our content. So cool. Thanks for your opinion. It's one of many. And on you move. So that's pretty much it from me. I guess the closing point will be, if you go all the way back to how I think we're framing the discussion at the moment, I think the challenge with this is it's kind of about the softer stuff. It's about our attitude and our willingness to take control of our own world and be in charge of our own destiny. It's tough, requires some courage, but it's kind of all that it's about. We have the technical expertise. There's a room full of people who would blow my mind with their knowledge and expertise right here. This is about what you do with the softer stuff. And that's me done. Plenty of time for questions. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you a lot. Guys, do you have questions? Yes, we have questions.
Hi, I have a question about customers. You say that we should focus on their needs, and what if the customers think they know what they need, and in fact, they are not aware that they need something else?
Where's Oded gone? So I think that's the two sides of the understanding point for me. So we had a phenomenon where there was a real big push for allowing customers to purchase products and select products earlier in the journey, because we believed our existing customers were very transactional by nature and they wanted in and out of the website very, very quickly. So, which is kind of correct. If you ask them, that's what they told you. But they were existing customers, and what we had to do was kind of hold our nerve about the other customers that were out there that weren't buying from us yet, who were following that other phenomenon around, actually, I want a broad product set, and I want you to create content that answers my questions. So that's why you need the kind of external perspective of the broader customer base as well as your own customers. So when I talked about that, I'm advocating both. Speak to the guys who are buying from you today, but know the industry and know what's going on. And you're kind of doing that today. So you're amongst people with similar challenges to you today, hearing what's going on in your industry. So, and I think that's important too, because you inspire your team to know about the industry. And that's part of that professionalism, professional pride, commercial specialism stuff. You need to know what's going on. I think knowing it's the easy part, having the spuds to kind of stand there and drive something that's going to need some time to prove out because you're doing something different to what the customer's perspective is telling you, that's the difficult bit. So it requires courage. Does that answer your question? Cool.
Anyone else? Okay, we have one more.
I want to ask you about some tips and tricks to encourage your people to do that shift. Actually, if you've got something, it will be great.
Sure. Tips and tricks to get the people to follow this journey that I've described. It's hard because what you'll find is they have had it ingrained in them that people say things to them like, be decisive, be empowered, take more risk. And then they do so and they go, "Ooh, terrible, look what you did, you shouldn't have done that." And we go back to prescribing. But it's thirds, right? Simplify the world again. Everything splits into thirds. So there'll be a third of people who are actually desperate to go and do this. They're the guys that come up to you and say, "This is crazy, why are we doing it?" And you give a particular corporate answer around, "Well, yeah, it's difficult to change." You gotta cut those people loose, and then the rest, bit by bit, will kind of follow. So, and you just have to demonstrate that you're going to see this through and you're going to allow this to kind of happen. And the biggest problem I had actually wasn't with the team who I was challenging to kind of behave in this way. It was the people that were responsible for managing them directly. So my leadership team and their managers really struggled with this. And I kind of used to push it to the extreme just to kind of watch them squirm, and because it was part of in their position, it was easier to push them around a bit rather than encourage them to change. So I used to kind of just accelerate it by making it quite extreme. But pick out the guys that are going to work. You have to see it through, and you have to talk about and celebrate the examples of where this has gone really well. But there'll be a nervousness because this that I'm describing isn't uncommon for organizations. Everybody talks a great game on empowerment and taking risk and stuff. So it has to come from you. But they'll get there.
So I think the leadership is the main goal, yeah, to achieve this other stuff.
Did you say the leadership?
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got
strong
yes.
leader that can protect your team, I think, from the other pressures from the above.
Yeah, absolutely. This is what you're doing is you're driving a new culture into your team, and that takes time and it takes courage from you to stand above them, and you need to be clear why you're prepared to be kind of working in this way. But we, to kind of set in the example for when I was asking people to behave in this way, we used to just have 2 rules. Those 2 rules were, don't get me sacked, don't get me locked up. Which, obviously there are more rules. I'd like you not to go and crash the website. I'd like you not to make our content disappear. But you're setting an extreme example. And then if you set the kind of the benchmark here and these guys end up coming up here, then bit by bit, they're going to head towards it. So, does that answer your question?
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Any more? Oh.
Okay, we have one more question.
Thank you for the talk. I really like the part about metrics. I think there is a really positive sentiment in our industry towards easy metrics like Google Analytics. It's simple, it refreshes every second, we can see it live, etc., etc. But the metrics you mentioned are simple, but they are not easy to achieve, right? You talked probably with your customers a lot, you talked with business, and my question is, how do you encourage people to go for simple metrics but not easy metrics?
How do I encourage people to go for simple metrics, not difficult metrics? I just did it, is the short answer, because they don't get it. So the point of that slide is, in any organization, there will be very professional, very skilled, very scientific analytics people, and that has its place and is really important. But you wait forever. They measure the things that are important to them rather than the stuff that's important to you. So you kind of have to take a bit of a grip of this, because you're not. Yeah, probably the best way I could describe it is, Oded used the plane analogy. So there comes a point when you're landing a plane where actually the dials are fairly unimportant because you can see the bloody runway, right? And it's the seeing the runway stuff. So it was quite crude, quite agricultural, but if customers were happier, and so we measured this. So we went from 35% of customers saying, I failed my objective today because of your content, to 5% of them. So a huge increase, and this was in all of our objectives. So this customer survey, the outcome of it was in my objectives, so I only got paid and bonused on it, and everybody in the team. And probably the biggest mistake we made, we spent a year doing lots and lots of great content, and I kind of deprioritized the metrics side of it. So we did loads of great content, and we didn't move that number at all. So everybody loved me because I'd put that metric in there, pay and bonus and objectives. And the reason was because we hadn't got the metrics and we weren't targeting the right products in the right areas. So I became really focused and belligerent on just getting those numbers. And they don't have to be those ones. I think my point is, how many times does somebody look at your content? What impression do they get of it? Do they do what you expected them to? And how happy are they with it as a broad theme? Not to replace the analytics, but just to drive to land the plane when you can see the runway. Terrible analogy. Another terrible analogy.
Do we have any other questions? We can still have one.
Yeah, hello. Thank you for your presentation. It was great. To be honest, it was the presentation of our journey. But we still have one big problem with gathering feedback from our customers. So what we are trying to do now is to use 2 stages of gathering feedback. One is an internal one, so we are trying to take feedback from our business analysts, from devs, from QAs, because they are using our application, so probably they know what is missing in our data, in our output with the documentation. But our biggest problem is that we have our semi-level of gathering data from the customer with this marketing. And for many cases, they are telling us completely different information that they have from the final customer. With our resources now, we are not able to use any surveys, anything very fancy, so we just have an option to get data straight from the customer by the marketing. Any tips for that? Any ideas?
So do you remember the phrase, remember I talked about us taking responsibility of what we now know about the customers and not getting involved in some bizarre intellectual pissing contest where we're kind of using the information for our own ends? Probably the only way, we could perhaps talk some more about kind of your specific example, but you've got to get past those people that are filtering and influencing the message that's coming back. Because for 2 reasons, really. First of all, it's going to drive you to do what it is that they'd like you to do. That's what they're using it for, it sounds like, which is not uncommon, but a bit cheeky. But also, it means that kind of you're deferring to them for the customer need. You haven't got it firsthand. And you need to be, for us to change this, we need to be credible. We have to be there ourselves. So my initial response without understanding your scenario specifically would be you've got to get past them. Even if it's just really light touch, simple. I saw a talk from a guy once. He was talking about UX, but he used to sit in a coffee shop near where he knew some of his customers were with drawn out pictures of the UX he was changing. And he used to buy people a coffee and ask them. So it's not, and this is the point about, so quantitatively, that won't stand up. That's not science. But you are hearing firsthand from customers what they think of your content. And there's lots of different ways to do it. We used to have branches where customers could come in, and our guys used to go out and just stand in the branches comparing those product titles, for example. And we started to create our own data sheets. So we tested them with people just as they come through the door. Because for us, we would have had to have scheduled a survey in amongst all of the other ones that were being done by marketing to ask about something as straightforward as a data sheet. It either works or it doesn't. It's a yes, no question, So, but I'm going to stick around for a bit before I fly home. So if you want to talk some more about your example, then we can do. Be happy to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Alan. As Alan just mentioned, he's going to be in our pink corner for the next 15 minutes or so before the plane. Thanks for staying with us, and big applause for Alan, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much.